do know is that one of our service members who was on a tour willfully and without authorization crossed the military demarcation line. We believe that he is in the BRK custody. And so we're closely monitoring and investigating the situation and working to notify the soldiers next of kin and engaging to address this incident. In terms of my concerns, I'm absolutely foremost concerned about the welfare of our troops.
In North Korea, officials say he crossed over the military demarcation line during a tour in South Korea. The UN command says it's working to, quote, resolve this incident. For more on this, we're bringing in national security correspondent for CBS News, David Martin. David, what do we know about this person and why he crossed into North Korea?
Well, we know for openers his identity. He is a Army second-class private named Travis King. He had been serving time in the brig in South Korea, had recently been released from the brig, and was being escorted to a plane that would take him out of the country. We don't know why he was in the brig, but you can presume it was fairly serious if it merited incarceration. He was escorted through the security point at the air terminal and then somehow managed to make his way back out of the air terminal and then up to the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, and attach himself to a group of tourists that was taking a tour of Panmunjom, which is the location where the armistice ending the Korean War was signed and is a tourist spot on the tour of South Korea. And at some point, he just managed to dash across the line, separating the South Korea from North Korea. Escaping into North Korea sounds like a contradiction in terms, but that is what it looks like he was trying to do.
David, how easy is it to cross? I mean, is it possible that it's done as a mistake? And talk to us about just the gravity of crossing into North Korean territory.
Well, it's not possible to cross it by mistake. There's just no being confused about where the line is. Most of the DMZ is heavily mined with barbed wire obstacles, but at the treaty site, Panmunjom, it's just a line on the ground. There are guards on either side, North Korean guards on one side, American and South Korean guards on the other. But they are largely a ceremonial guard, and it would be possible to dash past them over the line. Once you do it, of course, you become a pawn in the Cold War between the U.S. and North Korea. So this is not something you would want to do on a lark.
Absolutely. Possible, never advised. David Martin, good to see you. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Station Chief, Fox News contributor, and Dan, good morning to you. I don't know what you've been able to piece together, but CBS News has this report. They're calling him as part of a tourist group that was visiting the DMZ, and apparently he was with a bunch of other tourists at the time. They've all been questioned, and some of them apparently said the man gave out a loud ha, 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 and ran in between some of the buildings. And those buildings that Palcott just described apparently have not been occupied by North Korean soldiers for some time, going back to the pre-pandemic level. So we don't know. Did he do it voluntarily? Was he snapped? These are questions that are wide open at the moment, Dan.
Yeah, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and I can tell you that our U.S. military right now is mounting a full investigation. I'm quite sure we know the identity of this soldier, and I'm sure they're talking to anyone at that demilitarized zone who might have witnessed the soldier crossing over into North Korean territory. That is one of the most heavily surveilled geographic areas on the planet. So I'm quite sure that we can go back over and look at what happened and determine how the soldier, why he chose to make this decision and how he did it. Now North Korea has another piece of leverage that they can use against us, and we know from the past that they've used U.S. persons as pawns to gain traction in negotiations with the United States. Back in 2018, Secretary Pompeo was able to engineer the release of 3 Americans. We know that Otto Warmbier was detained in North Korea and brutally murdered there. So this is a very, very dangerous situation for the soldier, and it has implications for U.S. foreign policy.
You mentioned the leverage that this would give North Korea. Just based on what we know at this hour, Dan, what would you expect from the White House? How should we be handling this right now? Obviously, time is of the essence.
Well, I would expect the White House to be reaching out to Secretary Kerry, who's in China right now, to see whether China might play some positive role, although I doubt they would. Our relationship with China is not at the level right now where we could expect anything from them. Frankly, the Biden administration has tried to engage with North Korea, offered talks without any preconditions, and Kim Jong-un has refused. He's gone on testing record numbers of ballistic missiles with an eye towards being able to target the United States with the Hwasong-18 missile. And there are reports that North Korea may plan a nuclear test in the near term. What Kim Jong-un wants is sanctions relief and to be recognized as a nuclear power. And this U.S. soldier now in North Korea's custody may only add to his leverage to make that happen.
A couple things here. Along that DMZ, if you've been there yourself, you know the binoculars are set up throughout the area. Tourists visit there just about every hour on the day to peer into southern North Korea. The North also test-fired an ICBM, Dan, just about a week ago. And you know the sway that Beijing has in North Korea. China, through all of this, perhaps has the biggest vote of all as to what happens inside the Hermit Kingdom.
They do, and they would seek to exact quite a steep price from the United States in return for any assistance that they might provide. And I think that's the concern for the Biden administration, is that the way out of this is going to cost us. Now, look, we've got to be willing to pay whatever price we have to pay to get this soldier out of North Korea's clutches. But it's going to be painstaking, and I can tell you that North Korea is going to be in absolutely no rush to make any move whatsoever.
That's a fact. Dan, thank you on the quick work on that. Come back a bit later if we get more, okay?
Thank you, Dan.
And by the U.S. military before he crossed the demarcation line. CNN is learning more about the American soldier now detained in North Korea. A U.S. defense official says that the soldier was facing disciplinary action by the U.S. military before he crossed the demarcation line into North Korea.
Yeah, the official says he was about to be sent back to the United States. We're told he was not in uniform at the time and was on some kind of, a tour.
CNN's Mark Stewart, Natasha Bertrand, and Kylie Atwood are joining us now. Natasha, I want to begin with you. So we've learned that this soldier was assigned to the U.S. Forces Korea. What else do we know about him and this discipline that he was facing?
Well, not a lot, Sarah. Essentially, what we're learning at this point is that he was a junior enlisted soldier and he was assigned to U.S. Forces Korea, and he was taking a tour of the joint security area in the DMZ, at which point he appears to have crossed over that demarcation line into North Korea voluntarily. And I'll just read you a statement that we got from U.S. Forces Korea, which says that a U.S. service member on a JSA Joint Security Area orientation tour willfully and without authorization crossed the military demarcation line into the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Now, the U.S. military does at this point believe that he is still in North Korean custody. And interestingly, the military says that they are in touch with their Korean People's Army, that's the North Korean military, counterparts to try to resolve this issue. But what we are learning is that this soldier was apparently facing disciplinary action by the U.S. military, and he was actually set to be sent back to the United States before he actually went on this tour and ended up crossing that demarcation line again, apparently voluntarily and willfully. So Pentagon officials across the administration are trying to gather more information on why exactly he crossed that line, but obviously